The key to this election is apparently the ground game. That's what Jerry Seib says, and he joins us now from Washington, D.C. to discuss his column. There he is. Jerry, the ground game. It sounds fun. I suspect it's a lot of hard work. What do you mean by the ground game?
Well, what the ground game means is getting people who support you to actually show up on election day and vote. Getting them organized, getting them registered, getting them excited, and prodding them to the polls. And you know, we're in a close election campaign, Simon. It's close now. The Gallup tracking polls over the weekend have it pretty much dead even, and it's probably going to stay close. I think any thought that President Obama might pull away with this probably ended with that strong debate performance by Mitt Romney last week. So in a close election, what really matters is your ability to get the people who would vote for you if they showed up to actually show up and cast the vote. And for the Obama campaign, that means in particular young voters and Hispanic voters. And I think for the Romney campaign, a lot of it may turn on evangelical voters, voters who supported George W. Bush strongly in his elections, didn't support John McCain so enthusiastically in 2008, but who form a real core of the Republican Party base now.
Let's go through some of the numbers you've got here, because your column is full of juicy factoids, which I love, of course, because it's a great learning experience. You talked about Hispanic voters. That's key for him to win that group. Do they traditionally turn up and vote when there's an election?
Well, they comprised about 9% of the electorate in 2008, which is short of what they could be. I mean, they're probably a larger percentage of the population. They're not performing at the election, at the ballot box in proportion to their strength within the population. And so there's room for upside growth there. And that's really important for President Obama, because in our latest Wall Street Journal NBC News poll, he leads among Hispanics by, and this is an eye-popping number, Simon, 70% to 20%. I mean, wow. Mitt Romney is basically nowhere with Hispanic voters. So they're there for the taking, but you got to get them to show up if you're Barack Obama. Now,
the other area where Barack Obama did very well in the last election was with the youth vote, the younger vote, I should say. How's that playing this time?
Well, his lead is strong. It is 15 points or so in the latest Journal NBC News poll. And that group did pretty well in terms of turnout in 2008. They comprised about 18% of the electorate, 18 to 29-year-old voters, that is. And that's a pretty good performance historically by that group. But here's the catch. When you ask those voters in that age bracket this time, whether they're enthused about the election, whether they're following the election closely, whether they're registered to election, on all those metrics, they're less enthused and less plugged in than they were in 2008. So the key for President Obama is to try to match his performance in 2008 among those voters. That's going to require getting more of them registered and getting more of them enthused and turned on in the last 4 weeks of the campaign.
Now, on the Republican side, the evangelical vote is considered to be very, very important. And this time we have on the Republican ticket, we have Mitt Romney, who's Mormon, and we have Paul Ryan, who's Catholic. Traditionally, that wouldn't have played very well, would it?
No, and that created a lot of fear among Republicans early on that evangelicals would not turn out in big numbers to support a ticket led by a Mormon. There's no real sign that that's the case. If you ask in our poll, for example, evangelical voters say by about 76% that they will plan to vote for Mitt Romney, and they seem to be doing it fairly enthusiastically, but nobody's going to take that for granted. In the column, I talk about a conversation with Ralph Reed, who runs the Freedom and Faith Coalition, which is an organization that organizes and energizes religious voters. And he's going to spend $12 million trying to reach evangelical voters and get them to turn out and vote Republican this year. And that's important in some key states. Ohio, for example, Iowa, Florida. Those are all swing states that have fairly healthy contingents of evangelical voters. They're going to be reached in these last 4 weeks as well.
Now, he's pretty confident that they will show up, right?
He seems to be. He does. You know, and there was a fall-off in 2008. It was a problem for Republicans. You know, Ralph Reed told me that 4 million voters who voted for George W. Bush in 2004 did not vote for John McCain in 2008, and 1 million of those voters were evangelicals. He estimates there's 17 million evangelicals who didn't vote in 2008, some because they just didn't show up, some because they were never registered in the first place. That's a big group to try to reach. They're scattered all over the country, but as I said, there's some pockets of those people in particularly important places.